I'll be with you. Even if you can't see me.
What do you mean if I can't see you? I can always see you.
Littlefoot, let your heart guide you. It whispers, so listen closely.
Mother? Mother?
Welcome back to the YS channel. We got another fun movie review, cult classic from the late 1980s. Now this one, for a lot of us who watch our reviews or even a casual viewer, I think we're all familiar with 1988's The Land Before Time. For those of you who are not familiar with it, it's a late 80s Don Bluth, animated movie. And then, won't give you too much detail on Don Bluth, but he was a former lead animator for Walt Disney Studios. And he went off and did his own thing. He's the creative mind behind The Secret of the Journey of Nim, the American Tale, the one with the mouse, Land Before Time. And then he did the late 90s, I think it was the movie Anastasia. And then he's had there's some other projects he's been involved with that are popular. But anyhow, for the late 1980s, his studio was working on a movie, and they chose the model that was followed in Bambi. For those of you who aren't familiar with that, that's one of the early Disney classics. And then Bambi follows the story of Bambi the deer, who, he grows up, growing up, he lives with his mother, has a happy life. All that's taken away from him when a hunter kills his mother. Fucking sad, right? So anyhow, he grows up, it's like a coming of age thing for him. Flash forward to, 1988, we get The Land Before Time, and it follows a similar story. So instead of Bambi, you have a dinosaur named Littlefoot. He resembles like a brontosaurus or whatever. And he's like one of the first characters introduced in the movie. He's hatched, he's born. And he lives with his mom, who lives in a herd with his grandparents, who are her parents. Anyhow, the backstory of this movie, there's like a great famine, and all the dinosaurs are looking for this place called the Great Valley, which is filled with lush food and never runs out. It's a happy, fun place to live. Anyhow, he's born, right? And he goes from a little baby to the young kid that, he is throughout the rest of the franchise. While herding or traveling, he runs into another important character named Cera, who's like a baby triceratops. And I guess one of the themes of this movie is like discrimination and racism. As we find out quickly, the different dinosaur species really don't get along well with each other. Especially when Sarah's dad's like, yeah, you don't play with like the long necks. And that plays a little bit of a part later on in the movie. But anyhow, at the beginning of the movie, Littlefoot's mother gives him life lessons, tells him beware of Sharptooth, and those other crazy shit. There's a big ass earthquake, which they call earth shakes, and it splits up the dinosaurs. So the big old herd is split up into different splinter groups. So that was complicating their journey to the Great Valley. Fortunately, Littlefoot is stuck with his mother. And she'll help him get him there, right? Wrong. So we're still in pretty much the opening act of the movie, where they confront the biggest antagonist, which are known as Sharptooth, which is just a giant Tyrannosaurus Rex. It's an epic battle with the mother and the T-Rex. She's trying to save Littlefoot, protect him. The T-Rex ends up winning, kills his mother. Very sad scene for those who, if you watch that scene, you don't tear up a bit or get a little sad. Something's wrong with you. So she's there dying. She's like, I'll always be with you. Just my spirit will guide you to the Great Valley. And he's like, you can't go. And long story short, she dies. So in his grief, understandably now he's all alone. He's sad. He's just kind of aimlessly wandering around the great wasteland that they're in. And then he comes across this old dinosaur geezer guy who kind of helps him get over the grief a little bit and get them pointed in the right direction, more or less. And then it's during this part of the movie where he becomes like reunited with Cera, who's also stranded from her family. However, she's proud and arrogant, and she's like, I'm afraid of nothing, when in fact she is. It leads her to look foolish at times. So he comes across her. He comes across a little dinosaur, like a big mouth duckbill thing called Ducky. And her main characteristic, she's hyperactive, goes, yep. And then they come across a little baby pterodactyl named Petrie. And then eventually they'll bumble into the final character of the little gang, Stegosaurus named Spike, as they wander into an abandoned nest where he hatches from, and voila. And then while they decide to group together and find their way to the Great Valley, Littlefoot becomes like the leader character, and on they go. And then, of course, during the little journey, they have these little squabbles with each other. Mainly, again, being like they kind of not supposed to get along with each other. And there's a back and forth between Cera and Littlefoot, whoever's going to lead the group. And they have little infighting and arguments. And then they kind of split up for a little bit due to the infighting. However, while they're doing all this, they're being watched by the Sharptooth, the T-Rex. And then eventually, while they're journeying throughout the wasteland, they do come across the T-Rex once again. And then he's like pretty much the final obstacle they got to overcome in order to get to the Great Valley. So they group together. This is now near the end of the movie, right? And they ultimately end up like knocking a boulder on it, knocks him into the water, presumably killing him. And then, Littlefoot's mother appears as a giant cloud, because they're about to just give up. And then all of a sudden, the cloud forms like a trail to the rest of the Great Valley. And that's the end of the movie. And they all end up living happily ever after. The end, right? Except that after this movie was released, the modest box office success. However, they would go on to spawn a shitload of sequels. However, none of the sequels had anything to do with Don Bluth, unfortunately. So, unless they ever plan to remake it, it probably never will. Now, besides all that, for a late 80s movie, well animated, you can get behind, as a child watching, you can get behind the characters. And again, the death of Littlefoot's mother, that's always going to hit you hard. I don't care who you are. But other than that, besides this being one of those movies you could rent over and over again and watch on Disney Channel or get it from Blockbuster, it's always a good watch. It's always one of those enjoyable movies. Because at the end, they do have a happy ending when they find the Great Valley. But it's one of those nostalgic, childhood memories, I suppose. Just remove that whole death scene. And then, it's just a standard, kids movie, right? But with that said, some little background information. I know the character that plays Ducky is like a little girl. I forget the name. I think the last name begins with a B. She's also the voice of one of the main characters in the Old Dogs Go to Heaven movie, which is also another Don Bluth movie. However, she was murdered by her father before the release of the movie. So, damn. So, that's kind of a downer. But other than that, besides numerous sequels, this movie also would lead to a short-lived television show. And I think they even spawned some video games, probably. But all in all, one of those great nostalgic, childhood movies. Hopefully this little short review and discussion about it compels you to go check it out. If you haven't seen it in a long time, go check it out. Go watch it again. And other than that, thank you, and please drop a like and subscribe to the channel. Later.